took an anonymous survey of my peers ranging age 16 to 20, the average age being 16 and a half. I asked 9 questions to gauge their general knowledge of Korea. I'll run through some answers I got for each question that I feel best represent the majority view. The general trend was that people knew nothing, or something bad was happening, but not what. A few had seen the interview, a few knew some characteristics of Kim Jong-un, but more than a third knew nothing. The topic at hand is North Korea, but in order to understand half of the country, you have to know about the whole. I was expecting answers about pop culture, cities, or government. However, just as many, over 1/3, knew nothing other than it wasn't North Korea, and many were just wrong. The demilitarized zone is the 2.5-mile-wide, 160-mile-long border between North and South Korea. In the DMZ, there is the truce village of Panmunjom, where treaties and UN meetings are held. However, there isn't many. The border is heavily fortified from both sides, but the North Korean side isn't allowed to speak or react unless given direct orders from the dear leader. I was hoping for comments on functionality, or perhaps the truce village, but only about 20% of those surveyed even vaguely knew what it was. The current leader is Kim Jong-un. There is an administrative, judicial, and legislative branch. However, they are not independent of each other. Kim Jong-un, referred to as the dear leader in North Korea by all, essentially runs a dictatorship under the pretense of a socialist one-party state. The answers for this I was not expecting to be as in-depth, and many people knew generally Kim Jong-un and dictatorship. Kim Il-sung was elected to power when the North split from the South during the Korean War. He ruled from 1972 to 1994 and created the secretive, exclusionary, militarized country that exists today. He built what we call a cult of personality, a charismatic totalitarian leader developing mass propaganda, calling himself a deity and having citizens address him as dear leader. The leadership of the country was passed on to his son, Kim Jong-il, and then his grandson, Kim Jong-un. I expected people to at least know Kim Jong-un, as from the previous question, but I was unsure if they would know the 3 leaders and their paternal lineage. 1/3 of respondents didn't know either, and the others knew the family bond, and perhaps Kim Jong-il. I was surprised that only 2 respondents knew both Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. I included "if you perceive any" in this question in an attempt to gather the raw knowledge of respondents and not imply that there were human rights violations if not previously known. I expected people to know that the North Korean government was oppressive, spread mass propaganda, and did not allow for travel or any contact with the Western world. Every single person, with the exception of 1, named a valid violation. Reunification of Korea is a means to end the North Korean regime that has a lot of global support. While the end result is desirable, the path to reunification is long, grueling, and riddled with mishaps and questions. I did not expect strong stances from the respondents, but I did expect them to know what reunification was. I expected many yes, but answers discussing the pitfalls of reunification. What I got was many half-put-together definitions and rushed conclusions of no, because I don't understand. These answers were some of the most interesting to read. Assuming that not many would know in depth the issues surrounding reunification, I give a hint that there was some. Just an example of potential issues. How it will come to be, who it will benefit, anger, how will it change world relations, will it result in war, how much will it cost and who will pay, what kind of government would result. Answers were on both ends of the spectrum, either not known, general, or in a few cases very specific. This question begs many answers. There are countless horrible dictatorships, and the token Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin were mentioned. What was missing was the why. In a way, North Korea's regime is unique in the fact that there is a government in order that allows them to present themselves as simply a one-party socialist state, no different than China. The Kim regime has also not faced much, if any, attempted intervention or war in its near 50-year existence. If you look at Hitler's rule, he was only in power for 6 years until his Nazi party commenced World War II. The gulags, isolation, lack of freedoms, refugees. North Korea is not very far from a smaller-scale Nazi Germany. It's just lesser known. Now that we've established lack of knowledge many students have about North Korea, let's discuss how the communist state came to be. In 1945, during World War II, when the US dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan surrendered to the Allied forces. Northern areas of Japanese-occupied Korea were taken over by the Soviet Union, and US forces arrived in southern areas. The Communistic Democratic People's Republic of Korea was established in the north, and UN-approved elections were held in the Republic of Korea in the south. These ideological differences led to the Korean War in 1948. The two leaders of the forces met in Panmunjom and agreed to divide the country along the 38th parallel, what is now the DMV. There is a significant lack of freedom in the DPRK. Freedom to speak one's mind, freedom to travel, freedom to learn, freedom to govern one's own life. There is very little new technology in North Korea. Many of the cars, buses, guns, etc. are from Soviet Russia, left behind from their occupation. Citizens are given classes of core, wavering, and hostile, and these are considered always. Core party members will get to live in Pyongyang, the capital. Those deemed as hostile are often doomed to rural areas, no government food rations, and ultimately prison camps. When citizens speak against the Kim dynasty, act in poor public conduct, get in the wrong side of an official or lieutenant, or any other number of minor offenses, they will likely get sent to a prison camp. Often, it is not only the offenders that get sent, but their entire families. These camps can be seen clearly on Google Maps, and many defectors have spoken of them, but the government denies they exist. When a citizen decides to defect and they fail, they will be repatriated. Upon return, they face beating, torture, and interrogation, even in the case that they repent. No one is exempt from North Korea's cruelty. Children and adults are alike in danger. It is incredibly hard for North Koreans to defect through the DMZ as it is so heavily guarded. Most cross the Tumen River into China, then travel to Mongolia or Laos to then fly to South Korea, the US, or wherever else they want to declare refugee status. Of course, crossing into China through a river is a legal entry. Most countries allow refugees to declare themselves and stay, however China has forcibly repatriated thousands upon thousands of North Koreans. They are under global scrutiny for seemingly facilitating North Korea's crimes against humanity. South Korea is the only country that has a program for North Korean defectors that attempts to assimilate them into South Korean culture. This program is called Hanawan. The program teaches things deemed necessary in South Korea, such as how to apply for jobs, but doesn't cover cultural assimilation in the eyes of North Koreans.
Roll. Roll.
Take my broken hands and tie them to the sky. Everything's disposable, wilderness decides.